Good afternoon, actually. It's by 2 minutes. We are here at Capitol Clarity once again. This is our 9th week here in the 2023 legislative session. And this is probably the most exciting thing that I think that I do as part of this new job of mine, because it's getting out there and connecting with the people and the people who are elected to represent us. And that's the whole purpose of this program, to connect you with your elected representatives and with the people in state government who are making decisions that affect a lot of people. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. A few weeks ago, I read an editorial by Senator Glenneda Zuiderveld about a proposed windmill farm out in the Magic Valley. And something about it stuck with me, and I thought about it and read about it. And I don't know, something about it just didn't sit well, didn't seem right. So I invited her to come and speak with you about it, to share firsthand. She's actually still in the Senate because of the memorial this morning. The Senate and House sessions are going long, but she will join us when she can. But she also brought with her some of her constituents who have a lot of knowledge about this project, and they will be sharing that with you today. So here with us from the Magic Valley are Lyle Johnstone and Joan Herlock. Sorry, my mind went blank right then. I apologize. But Lyle and Joan will be up here in just a moment to share what they have to say about this project. If the senator comes in, she'll come take the microphone. But in the meantime, I'd like to turn the microphone over.
Thank you, Brian. So my name's Lyle Johnstone. I'm the chair for Magic Valley Liberty Alliance in the Twin Falls area, Twin Falls, Jerome County, basically. So this project's only about 25 miles out of Twin Falls, proposed project, okay? It hasn't happened, and we pray that it doesn't happen. It's an interesting thing when you, where does your mind go when you see this picture?
FDR.
Yep. So FDR, if most of you in here already know this, so I'm preaching to the choir. FDR was a progressive, right? And so today, what do we see mostly in our government are progressives. And so picture Americans living in the United States, minding their own business, doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they get a notice of 48 hours to vacate their homes and to move to a concentration camp. We're talking 120,000 people. 70,000 of them were citizens. And 30,000 of them turned out to be exemplary military men. And of course, they didn't fight in the Pacific Theater because they were Japanese Americans. Let's just kind of keep that in the back of our mind. Can I have the next one, please? Iyaki. Are most of you familiar with Iyaki? Okay. No. Yeah, one of my, it almost sounds like you're gonna yak, doesn't it? So Iyaki, one of our authors, and Karen Schumacher has also, but Hilber Nelson has written a lot of excellent articles on our website, mvlibertyalliance.org. And one of them is this Iyaki article. And some of the key people who play in this, but Iyaki is tied into the World Economic Forum and the United Nations. And we have money that gets distributed in Idaho to certain candidates for certain offices by the Idaho Prosperity Fund. So let's just kind of form an idea of progressivism and who promotes that in Idaho, and concentration camps, or the possibility of concentration camps. Could I get the next one, please? So there we go. There's the brand logo for the United Nations and Agenda 2030. How many of you, by a show of hands, are up on Agenda 2030, that you know something about it? Okay, a fair number of you. This beast is called a lot of things. Build Back Better, Agenda 2030, Agenda 21, the Global Reset. The core of it today is sustainable development. Okay, may I have the next slide? If you look at capacities necessary for sustainable development, right in the center, like the bullseye, right? All of these things around that bullseye are key to have the bullseye in place. So we could just relabel that the World Economic Forum or the United Nations in the middle of that. So part of what I'm saying here, directly or indirectly, is sustainable development is behind the want to put what we call green energy, or the key phrase often used is renewable energy. Let's not be deceived. It is not renewable, it's replaceable. It breaks, it wears out. You can't renew it, you have to replace it. But we get hammered with buzzwords that sometimes keep us off kilter and pointed in the wrong direction. So Joan's going to talk a lot about the actual thing. Next slide, please. So this is one of Hilber's artworks, and that's kind of how we feel about the wind project in the Magic Valley. So it's Agenda 2030. Make no mistake, one of the biggest reasons to do these projects is wealth transfer, transferring your taxpayer wealth to the ultra wealthy and taking it out of your pocket and out of circulation of the main body of citizens. The size of these things is absolute monstrosity. So the proposed wind turbines are 740 feet tall. The blades are as long as a 747. So are any of you from, well, okay, the Zions Bank building is 323 feet tall at the top of the spire. That's basically half of what these wind turbines would be. So as you drive into, from outside Boise, drive into the valley, how far out can you see the Zions building, right? So imagine these out in the desert, set twice that tall. How far away can you see them? At night, they all have red blinking lights on them. They make noise if they're running. Supposedly, listening to LS Power is interesting, and asking them questions. I've never gotten a direct answer for any question that was ever asked. What I see from them predominantly is word salad. Let's go to the next one, Brian. This is the chairman of LS Power. So his name is actually Michael Siegel. He comes from Russia. He was educated in Ukraine. Ring any bells recently of other things that are going on in the world? So one of the things that's interesting in green energy projects If you look across the United States, 80% of the developers of green energy are owned partially or completely by foreign entities. I haven't found the foreign money in here for sure yet, but my guess it's there. There may be some Korean money invested in the next corporation up. So typically these corporations, we start out at the local level in the Magic Valley with Magic Valley Energy, which is just a shell corporation that lasted about 5 minutes. And then you get to LS Power, and then you start digging it down deeper. And they've done a pretty good job of hiding where they're headed with this. So supposedly they're going to power 350,000 homes. Typically, wind energy is about 30% efficient. Next one. Oh, let's park that for a second. So one of the things that should have been in the EIS was a Form 7460, and that's from the FAA. So we have an airport in Twin Falls, which the next project south would involve the Twin Falls Airport. That would be a really big deal. Jerome's Airport has grown significantly in the last 10 years, and we now have an aviation company flying out of there, as well as ag aviation companies. If this project goes through, 7460 is important because that's what the FAA says about having 740-foot tall towers in some closeness to the airport. This, in essence, would shut down instrument landing approaches of Jerome Airport and the Gooding Airport, rendering them unusable for instrument landings. This is not in the EIS, environmental impact statement. There's questions being asked about that, but everybody's ignoring it at this point. This is a meeting of Stop Lava Ridge at Precision Aviation in Jerome, owned by Mark Dorr. So these are people from all around the valley. Do they look like they're happy to be there? They are not supporters, let me tell you. There's about 400 people there that evening. So when it's cold, the wind blows too hard, ice storms, and you plug your electric vehicle into this, how good does it work, right? So the point being, if you had 350,000 homes powered by wind energy, by this largest project in the United States, by the way, ever, and if it's 30% efficient, and there's some aftermath in the rebuild process, right? They leak oil a lot. Gentleman out Eden area where I live has been all over southern Idaho snapping photos of wind turbines. And it's amazing how many of them leak oil. So that wouldn't be an environmental hazard, right? Okay, this is a wind resource potential map. You can see Idaho. You can see that sort of tannish strip below the purple glob. That's fair, okay? Poor is one rating below that. No, this is moderate, and fair is one rating above us. So this is a very poor area to generate high capacity wind energy. But Luke Pepez says, well, since the desert's burned several times in the last couple of decades, it's not a big deal. It's not pristine landscape, and so therefore we can go in and basically total it. I mean, if you had been in this desert and you've seen its ecosystem, so to speak, it's largely lava rock covered by just some of it by a little bit of topsoil, not much. It's mostly rock. And if you blow up 400 holes. That's 525 days of 2 shots per day of ammonium nitrate and diesel. Joan can talk to you about that because she's an explosive expert. So here we go. We're back to Agenda 2030. Agenda 21, the Western Governors Association meeting. I don't know who belonged to that in 2021 or who was the chairman, but really what got lined out here in this article amounts to this. Yep, all bases covered for the implementation of the United Nations Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. While stated he liked to steal good ideas from other states, he is really stealing. Well, he's not stealing it. He's adopting what? Agenda 2030. This happens in many parts of our government. We are just simply copying and pasting UN or global law, statute, and pasting it on paper and passing it in the legislature for the last few years. It's pretty scary stuff. Legislators, governors, their position really with the federal government is to become a nullification agent whenever possible, not an implementation agent. We have basically become implementation agents of the federal government. Barack Obama signed an executive order. I just love it when the king does this, right? We don't use Congress. We don't use legislature. We can deregulate sage grouse habitat in the Lava Ridge project by simply signing the king's executive order. It's an amazing thing. The myths of green energy. It's not green. It takes something like 500 metric tons removed from the earth in probably an open pit mine or a bunch of third world slaves digging this stuff out of the goop with their hands. It takes 500 tons of earth ore to make an electrical vehicle battery. One electrical vehicle. So does that sound green? I mean, what does it take to make the power head right there, right? Let alone the steel for the mast. And now we have to have wire to hook all these turbines up to a main line, a transmission line. And this power isn't going to stay in Idaho. Luke jumps around that, well, up to 350,000 homes and whoever buys it. Well, it costs too much for Idaho Power to buy it. They can buy power cheaper in lots of other places. So where do you think it's going to go? It's going to go to Vegas. It's going to go to Southern California. So we're going to build a 1,200-mile transmission line? Do you just smell money going away from the American citizen in one silly project after another? That's really what Lava Ridge is a red herring attempting to be foisted on, I would say largely, a bunch of redneck Idahoans. I mean, I'll volunteer for that moniker. I like Idaho, how it used to be. I like it how it is, but I'd like to roll it back 50 years. And we're supposed to sit by and think that this is good for Idaho. The plan is to, when this project wears out in 30 years, is to go in and reinstate, to reclaim it, okay? You will never fix this desert, ever. When you get done blowing 400 holes and building 381 miles of road in this this country is not flat. It may look flat to you when you look across it. It is not flat. It is one hole after another little rise. By the time they get done building 381 miles of road, 400 miles, 486, okay, the number changes. Which day of the week we talk to them, right? And 2,000 trips a day while they're building this. Let alone the groundwater. We have the North Snake River aquifer underneath all of this area, which is basically capped by lava rock. It's porous. It's not that hard. It's fairly soft rock. And you're going to set off 1,050 charges over the top of that. And you're going to guarantee me that Joe's sewer water isn't going to run in my freshwater well. Really? Or you're not going to rupture some main canals that irrigate thousands of acres of farm ground that run through these lava beds. Daniel.
First birthday was April 22nd of 1970. Raise your hand if you know why that date was selected. One hand. I call him the communist of the day. Gaylord Nelson, the Senator, Ira Einhorn, who ended up murdering his girlfriend some time later. That's when it all started. That's when all this started. And they actually chose April 22nd, 1970, to coincide with Lavender Bennett's 100th birthday. People don't know that. So if you go to the internet and you type in 1970s environmental predictions that never came true, you'll see a whole list of the predictions these guys made that never came true. So my point is the history of this goes back 50 years. Okay, a slow progression of what we're seeing now in the environmental nut job. I took environmental studies in college for my minor, only to see what they were up to. Okay, and so unfortunately, we got this guy Shiva. You know who that guy is. Little. I call him Little Lennon.
Come on up, Senator. Let's get you in here while we got you.
Guy, and he's now on the school board, and his goal is to continue to educate all people on climate change.
Right there. Sketchy parts of it. But
my point is real simple. We got to let people know about all this stuff. Like one of my favorite senators is here. Anyways, I just wanted to bring that up there.
Thanks, Daniel. Hi, everyone. I'm a little out of breath because I just ran from the Senate floor, so a lot going on today. So I'm not sure. Looks like we talked about President Obama's executive order. We talked about that. Okay, so that was done on January 27, 2021. And this executive order, when I talked to Magic Valley Energy, I had asked them how they had fast-tracked this project, and they told me that it was through this executive order. And so then with that, Biden, it says here, it says it fast-tracks this project on federal lands. It says the use of federal procurement to support robust climate action, including a carbon and pollution-free electricity sector no later than 2035, and clean and zero emission vehicles for federal, state, local, and tribal government fleets. And so this is kind of where a lot of this has started with these wind turbines coming into our public federal lands. Then President Biden did a national goal at net zero carbon emissions, and he wants that to be done at 2050. So then we fast forward to today. Some of the things here going locally kind of under the radar and they're kind of hard to find, but we've been having some bills here locally that are going to be helping with pushing this forward. And one of the bills that we just voted on yesterday in the chambers was the Clean Energy Bill, HB 96. It passed the House and then it also passed the Senate with me not voting for it. That basically it was redefining where it's no longer renewable energy, it's clean energy. And then they added lines saying like batteries are clean energy, which is going to open that door for Magic Valley Energy to bring in a huge pad of batteries. And I'm sure Joan and Lyle can maybe touch more on that for us. Another bill that has came forth that I had caught, and it came through Health and Welfare, which I thought was kind of weird. And it's basically giving it's Senate Bill 1014. And it is to give the director of Department of Environmental Quality to enter into voluntary funding agreements with public agencies, municipal corporations, and private parties. So then they can kind of skip the legislative process and skip us, and they can go right into doing your agreements with your private companies, which would basically benefit, again, your LS Power and Magic Valley Energy. But right now that's been held up and it's coming back to Health and Welfare, and hopefully we can hold that back if I can get the education and the information out. The other thing I was wanting to talk about is I've been getting hundreds of emails on both for and against. To give you an example, those emails that we're getting, the hundreds that are against it are from people that live in the Magic Valley. I have not had one that has been for this project. And the ones that are for the project, I've had my intern help me, and he's gone through all my emails and located what all their zip codes are. And out of the hundreds on that side, I've only had a half a dozen that were from the Magic Valley. All the rest are from out of our area. So that kind of gives you an idea of what's going on. The local residents are 100% against it. It literally will harm not only just the Magic Valley, but it will have a huge impact on the entire state. Then the other thing I want to share, and then I'm going to give it over so I can let them get deep into a lot of the things. Governor Little did an executive order on March 3rd, 2022, and basically it reverses the sage grouse mitigation. And so what he did is he adopted the federal land or the sage grouse mitigation plan from the federal, and that opens it up because now they want to share the lands with other things. Before, we've been protecting those lands. A lot of people couldn't do anything on those lands because of the sage grouse. Now, because this project's coming in, he reversed that, and now we are going to be sharing those lands with 750-foot towers. And so that was kind of what I was going to touch on. And I would like to introduce Joan Herlock. If you want to come forward. She is not only a really good friend, she just knows everything about this. She is my go-to gal. So she's going to go a little bit deeper and give you a little bit more detail on exactly what the impact's going to have on the Magic Valley. And I'll come up later and maybe we can answer questions later. But thank you.
Hi, excuse me. Thank you for having me today. I want to go back to a few things that Lyle kind of touched on. So this picture comes from the Friends of Minidoka. They are the Japanese Americans that will be directly impacted by this project if these towers are allowed to be built. There are several alternatives proposed for the placement of the wind turbines. So first off, let me tell you, Magic Valley Energy is a subsidiary of this LS Power. They've named it Magic Valley Energy, so we're all under the impression that this is a Magic Valley company. They have 2 local employees, and they get up and talk about, well, I'm a Idahoan. That makes this company a Magic Valley company, and it is not. She incorporated in Missouri. LS Power is headquartered in New York. And they also, when they tout Magic Valley Energy, well, it's homegrown power, homegrown products, it's American apple pie, baseball, all that. But like Lyle touched on, the founder of the company is actually from the former Soviet Union. So it's not baseball and apple pie in America, raw. Anyway, so the Friends of Minidoka put this out. The proposed project by Magic Valley Energy is called Alternative B. Could you put that up? That is the top left corner. It would impact almost 200,000 acres of public land. So 200,000 acres, 400 wind turbines. And the closest wind turbines to the Minidoka area would be 1.7 miles from their visitor center. One aspect of the Minidoka National Monument is they've tried to create the sense of isolation that the Japanese Americans experienced when they were incarcerated there, because this place was put out in the middle of nowhere, so they were isolated and it was desolate. And by putting all of these turbines around this monument, that greatly disturbs the feeling they're trying to create there when the Japanese Americans visit there to remember and memorialize what went on there. It will just greatly disturb that isolation and desolation if they have all these wind turbines basically surrounding them. Magic Valley Energy, in the environmental impact study, they paid a company to do visual simulations as to what people would see while they're at the Minidoka Monument. And those of us that live in the area will tell you they are absolutely misleading in the way they depict these turbines. I've got pictures and they're not up on the screen here. But, and you won't be able to see it, but they've put little simulated turbines in there, and you can't see them, but they're like this big, and these are supposedly 1.7 miles away, and that's all you would see, 1.7 miles away. And this is supposed to be the 740-foot tall wind turbine. Well, I have some pictures that I took in Buell, Idaho. If any of you are familiar with the wind turbines near Hagerman, Bliss, those are on private land. They are half the height, more than half the height, or less than half the height of these 740-foot tall turbines. And I can tell you, when you are 1.7 miles away from them, they aren't this big in your view. You practically have to look up to see them all. I have another picture here that you probably can't see, but you can see these little wind turbines in the back. Those are the wind turbines in the Hagerman area. And where this picture was taken is 18 miles away. So that's a big difference. So they're claiming from 1.7 miles away, all you will see is what this looks like. And that's just misleading and false. Another picture I took, a lot of people don't notice this until I point it out to them. This is in Buell. I don't know if you're familiar with the town of Buell, little town. This is Broadway. It's our main road going through town. If you stand, this is near the Family Dollar Buell drugstore, and look straight west on Broadway, you see the wind turbines that are up on the Magic Water Reservoir, and that is 17 miles away. And I don't have a picture of it, but from Highway 93, 100 North in Jerome, you can't really see, here's a map. So from this little spot right here, you look across the valley west, and you see the same wind turbines, and that's 33 miles away, and they're bigger than what Magic Valley Energy depicts from 1.7 miles away. So the visual simulation is false and misleading, but that's their way of trying to get buy-in to people that, oh, well, this won't impact the Minidoka Monument. Yes.
I hate to interrupt, but I'm going to anyways. There's an old saying that the people will support what they help create. There's no doubt in my mind that good citizens of Idaho are totally against this project. I would suggest that this is not government for the people or of the people, it's government to the people. And this project is not wanted. So I would suggest that you and Glenneda and Lyle, in your valuable remaining time with us today, we get it. The project is horrible. We don't want it. How about we spend our time on what we can do to stop this project? And where is our congressional delegation involved? And I'll yield my time back to the experts. Thank you.
And I will share all of that. So first off, there has been a huge movement in the Magic Valley. There is a Stop Lava Ridge Facebook page, which now has over 4,300 followers or friends. And that has grown by at least 1,000 new people in the last week. So we have the Stop Lava Ridge Facebook page. Currently, the BLM is accepting comments. We were successful in getting the comment period extended until April 20th, and they are taking comments there to be of a substantive nature. And that means you can't just send a comment in saying you don't like wind turbines, they're ugly and they kill birds. You have to address specific things in the EIS, which this is just volume 1 of the EIS. It's actually a 1,200-page document, 4 volumes. You're supposed to address specific things in the document that concern you, or that they've omitted, or that are false or misrepresentations, and you're to write a letter referencing something in the EIS. And from that, the BLM will take that and then come up with their response and recommendations for the project. So for example, I wrote a letter addressing the blasting. There will be 525 days of blasting, according to them, if this all goes. It's supposed to all take place within 2 years, the construction project. But then when you read the fine print in there, the construction can actually go for 5 years. So they plan on blasting 525 days, and it will come to 126,000 pounds of ANFO, which is a high explosive. High explosives, unlike low explosives such as black powder or smokeless powder, the low explosives push things out of the way. So if you want to remove a tree stump or a big rock, you use low explosives. The high explosives, they shatter and they destroy, and their shock waves, even in the ground, can act like little earthquakes. And as Lyle pointed out, this whole project, the 200,000 acre impact, sits right on top of the Snake River Plain aquifer, which supplies all of the water to hundreds of thousands of people. and there is concern that that might impact the aquifer. So you could write a letter addressing, bringing up the question, how will this impact the aquifer? There are other things in there. For example, there's no mention of migratory birds, the waterfowl. So you could bring up, why was this omitted? I noticed this wasn't in there. You need to study this and survey it. How will this project impact the migratory waterfowl? Another topic someone could bring up is, by federal law, these reports are supposed to be made available in the language that's common to the area. They only have this in English. Well, the area of impact is quite a large population of Spanish-speaking people, Portuguese-speaking people. So there's nothing in Spanish, Portuguese, there's not anything in Japanese. And it's the Japanese American community that will be directly impacted by this. So you could write a letter, hey, this needs to be made available to the common languages of the area. So those are just some examples. And you can send your comments to kprestwich@blm.gov, and those are due by April 20th. That's one way you can get involved. And another way is just keep writing your legislators, let them hear from you. We need to overwhelm the numbers they're getting from outside the state and the area. And to bring up our congressional delegation, they actually have jointly, our 2 senators and 2 congressmen, along with Governor Little and Lieutenant Governor Betke, they wrote a letter expressing their concerns over the project and that they can't support the project if the people don't support the project and if they don't address the concerns. So because of everyone's comments and emails to our legislators and congressional people and executive branch, they are at least doing something that way. And it was because of our congressional delegation, we were able to get the comment period extended another 30 days. So they are working to do what they can to support all of us. So that's what you can do there. Our hope is as we're speaking right now, the Resource Advisory Committee that's set up to inform the BLM on how to proceed with the natural resources on public lands. They're actually meeting right now as we speak. And there's a subcommittee that's set up to discuss the impacts of Lava Ridge, and they will make recommendations to the BLM. And I was listening to it on my way here today. And I believe the Resource Committee will advise and recommend to the BLM Alternative A, which you don't see up there. It's Alternative A. People don't think there's an alternative. They just think these are the only options. So the different alternatives are less wind turbines, less acres, but they don't have on their Alternative A, which is the no build option. And so that is an option, and I believe that is the recommendation this Resource Advisory Committee will make to the BLM. And as of yesterday, there was a hearing in the House Energy Committee to vote on and discuss House Concurrent Resolution 4, which is to support the no build option for Lava Ridge. It was co-sponsored by Representative Clow and Nelson from the Magic Valley area. And so a lot of us testified about it, as well as Magic Valley Energy talking about how great their project is. But the House Energy Committee unanimously passed that resolution with a recommendation to pass it in the full House.
No, go ahead and
Oh,
finish it.
okay.
I want to come in and give some more options. of-
Okay. So our Representative Clow even said himself that this is the one issue, they've never seen anything like it, that has brought everyone together on the same page, whether people are Republicans or Democrats or in-betweeners, like Representative Clow said. And so that's why he and Representative Nelson were supporting the no-build option, even though they personally would favor this project. But because of the pressure from people and their letters and comments, that's why they went ahead with this resolution, to show that they're listening to their constituents. And I believe Senator Zuiderveld wanted to speak to that.
Thank you, Joan. Yes, and as far as what's going on here in the Capitol, there is the House Concurrent Resolution 4, and that a bunch of us co-sponsored, especially in the Magic Valley. And the problem is our resolutions really usually don't have any teeth to them. And so we still need to, we need to make sure we're not letting our guard down on this, and we need to continue to put pressure on, which is continue to write those emails, call up your representatives, because we are starting to get pressure from a lot of your larger corporations and people who will actually benefit from this. And unfortunately, sometimes our representatives will cave to that. So keeping that pressure up as a citizen, you guys need to keep holding the line and keep them against the ropes on this. And the other issue too is it's not going to stop here. So if Lava Ridge passes, and I don't know if Lyle talked on Salmon Falls, so that's in Jerome. And by the way, that's where I grew up, is in Jerome. And so I know everybody in Jerome, but we currently moved to Twin, which puts me in District 24. 24 is now Twin Falls County, Gooding County, and Camas County. So if this goes through, they have a plan for 70,000 acres in Salmon Falls, which is in my district in Twin Falls, for another 310 740 foot turbines. And so, and then in Gooding, they have another, which I don't believe it's with Magic Valley Energy, but another corporation is going to come in and put a bunch in Gooding. And again, like I said, the impact on that will basically make it like a Bermuda Triangle. So there will be all these turbines in Jerome, turbines in Twin, and then Gooding. It'll definitely change how people farm. It will change our water situation, because what happens is, I always give the example of vineyards in California. What do they use to keep their grapes from freezing? They use little mini turbines. So you get these huge turbines in all this area, it will change the effect of how we farm in the Magic Valley, which Magic Valley is one of the largest areas of agriculture that brings in a lot of money to Idaho. And so we really need to protect that. The other thing I want to share real quick too is the aquifer is the second largest aquifer in the US is in Jerome. This aquifer goes all the way up to Yellowstone. So it's not just going to impact us, it's going to impact a lot of people with that. And there's no guarantee. There's just no, it's impossible for them to be able to guarantee that all those explosions or those blasts will not impact that aquifer. So we do need to have you keep calling. We have been talking with the AG's office, trying to figure out ways that maybe we can fight this. Unfortunately, if it gets to the point where they go forward with this, then it'll be up to the citizens to possibly go and sue those who have immediate impact. So let's say our airports, which is it's gonna affect our Twin Falls Airport, our Jerome Airport, and our Gooding Airport. And so that's another area of impact. There's just so many different things that's gonna impact us. And it'll come down to basically the citizens getting a lawyer and suing them. And so we are working towards that. Hopefully we don't have to do that. Maybe they'll just leave, is what our hope is. But we are ready to see this to the end. And so I also want to, Lyle, did you share everything that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think so. Could you put that last slide up? Brian? There, perfect. Could that be you one day?
Do you want to come up and share?
So this green energy push, right, is a big deal to the world government, right? So is it possible that we once took Americans who we decided we were going to pick on, we were going to segregate them, and we were going to put them in prison of war camps or concentration camps? Could that happen again? Could you substitute your face and your family's face for those people? Yep. David.
So the left often calls everything racist. Have you
Right.
thought about adopting the left's verbiage and calling this Lava Ridge project racist? Racist against Asian Americans, and using that moniker in terms of getting attention for it, because this project is racist. It's racist against Hispanics, it's racist against Asians, and that should be used against the corporations and saying they're racist to go ahead and get more of the left support to fight against this.
Good man. That was part of the reason for using. So my dad, as a young man, helped to build some of the infrastructure, like as a teenager. We called it the Hunt Camp at that point, but now it's called the Minidoka Relocation Camp, not concentration camp. So if you have questions, fire away.
I got a question.
Okay.
Do you have any literature that we can take, like contact?
Do we have literature that you can take? Senator Zuiderveld has run off a few packets of information, and those will be available after we're done here. Will it also have information on where you can find the EIS? You can find it on BLM's website, but you can also, if you're a Facebook user, you can go on Stop Lava Ridge, their Facebook page, and that address is there, and you can bring up all 1,200 electronic copies of it. Okay.
Any point of our community impact could have on the west of the money, west line, roads, out in that area, is that what?
If your money buys the EIS, you get the EIS you want. Does that make sense to you? And Fish and Game's really tight-lipped. I don't think they like it, but they've had a rag stuffed in their mouth. You want to add to any of this? You want to get up here?
Well, I was just trying to figure out, these were not the ones I just made up.
Nope.
Oh,
Got
yeah,
it.
the other
Right
ones?
back
Okay.
Can I just grab one of your packets?
Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of information, and you can also email and text me, and then also I'll make sure you have Joan, and there's a couple other people, like we said, the last town hall that we had in Jerome, there was over 350 people there of all parties, all different ways of life. I mean, it literally is the one thing that is joining us all together, and we're all against this. So and I believe, do you want to answer that, John?
I think you could complain about it. I think you could complain that Magic Valley Energy should have paid to provide enough copies for people to pick up because they assume everyone has a computer. And these have been very hard to come by. So they should have been required to produce not only in other languages, but enough copies for people that are computer challenged. And another, to speak to the racist issue, the other group that will be impacted are the Native American tribes. And so that is, I think those two, the Native American tribes and the Japanese American community, are the key to defeating this. And I will tell you, the Stop Lava Ridge group has attained a lawyer, an environmental lawyer in Washington, D.C. His name is Bill Eubanks. And we have on the Stop Lava Ridge site a place where you can send donations. And he's got experience and comes highly recommended by various groups that have fought different entities on environmental things, and including the Friends of Minidoka highly recommended him. So there are plans to fight this legally should it come to that.
Who makes the final decision, and which government entity makes the final decision on yay or nay if it goes?
The BLM.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's December 27th, 2022. There's a podcast you can download from Apple or Spotify. Ryan Dean Wright is an ex-CIA person, has his podcast now. And he has 4 podcasts on the dirty green energy. And one of them is wind farms, one of them is batteries, and there's 2 others, they're about 30 minutes. The one on the wind farms is the December 27th, 2022 podcast. Ryan Dean Wright, Ryan with a Y.
Thank you very much. I hope you heard that. And just real quick, I don't know if we touched on, so the transmission line, a lot of this energy is not going to be staying in the state. There will not really be any benefit. They're going to give us crumbs to our schools, to our fire departments, but the cost to our state is going to be very impactful to what is our budget, because our roads are going to suffer. We're going to have to do more with our schools in that area. So there's going to be a huge impact. And then when they're done, then when we'll have to kind of figure out how we're going to regroup after they leave. So go ahead.
Are any of the sportsman's group working an angle that it's going to limit access? Every tower has a footprint. They won't be able to access those areas.
Every group.
So they are involved in it.
The cattlemen's groups, the ATVers, the hunters. However, I don't think those are the winning issues, because those back east don't care about, they want us to all eat bugs. So they're not going to be concerned that this will impact the cattlemen that have grazed that land for generations. They're not going to be concerned about the ATVers losing their access. So I truly, and there are species of concern that are threatened that are located in this. So I think you could also approach the different species of concern, like the monarch butterfly, the burrowing owl, the sage grouse, different species. But I truly think the way to defeat this is the Japanese Americans and the tribal lands, just because the administration is all about diversity, equity, and inclusion and racial justice. But one thing I wanted to point out, just so you understand the size of just this one project, in the bottom left of the map up there is Twin Falls. That little, I can't point to it, but that little clump in the left corner, that's Twin Falls. Up above is the siting map for the wind turbines for Lava Ridge. So that just gives you an idea. That's 300 square miles of land, and they will put in almost 500 miles of roads in that area, which further degrades and fragments habitat and increases fires and weeds. Anyway, thank you.
And I think we're about out of time. And so all your questions, okay, one more question real quick, and then we'll be hanging around and we can answer your questions individually, but we're kind of our limits up here with the Lincoln Auditorium. So one more.
Please repeat the address to write to.
Okay, Joan.
BLM.
K Prestwich, KPrestWich @blm.gov. You're welcome.
Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you for being patient while I am trying to do numerous sessions today. We will be going back into session at 3:30, and we'll be here till 8. So anyway, thank you very much for coming and listening to us. We appreciate it.
Thank you all for coming, and come back next week. I'm setting up our next guest and topic, and I think you'll be really interested to hear it. But this is an interesting one. This is one of those that's not really what's called a hot button issue, but it's something that will really affect our quality of life in this state for generations to come. And we need to, make sure that our leaders are listening to us, the citizens of Idaho, not multinational corporations, not NGOs, not the federal government. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.